Hello, my name is Gavin Hertrich, and I will be presenting the empirical study of the role of nonverbal communication in the coach-player relationship that was written by Tatiana Dobrysk. I want to do this article because I played college sports, and so I know that there's a lot of nonverbal communication that goes on between coaches and athletes. And when I searched it, about 22,300 results came up. And I chose this one because it was the first one to pop up, and the Google summary that was given to me made it seem interesting. The purpose of the study was to identify certain applicative alternatives of nonverbal communication in the coach-athlete relationship and the role they play in the process of learning motor content that is specific to gymnastics. This article pulled information from 6 different sources. It was written by 5 different authors, and they were all written in French or Romanian. They were all were released within the same 6-year span of 2000 to 2006. The research questions. The first one was the importance of communication between the coach and the athletes and the other athletes, and the athletes and other factors such as the crowd and their parents. The next one was what kind of communication is preferred and most useful during training. How large of a role does nonverbal communication play during training was the third. The final one was what nonverbal factors are most important during training between movement, gestures, posture, facial expressions, and looks. The methods that they used were open-ended questions in the form of a questionnaire that was given out to a few of the athletes. So for the first research question, 60% of the participants said that communication with the coach was the most important. 35% said that communication with other athletes was most important. 5% said that communication with the other factors such as the crowd and their parents was most important. For the second, 53% said that nonverbal communication was the most helpful. 27% said that verbal communication was the most helpful. 20% said that paraverbal communication was the most helpful in learning the techniques and methods that are needed in gymnastics. For the third question, 52% said that verbal communication only plays a supporting role to nonverbal communication. 23% said that it could replace verbal communication entirely. 17% said that it was a good tool to use when decoding verbal messages, and 8% contradicted by saying that they preferred verbal communication. The most important was body movements. Next was gymnastics gestures, and then postures, and followed by facial expressions, and lastly looks were the most important nonverbal factors during training. So discussion. This article talked a lot about the role of nonverbal communication with their coaches during their training and how effective various athletes thought it was at this communication style. The study showed that the overwhelming majority of athletes thought that it was important and very effective compared to verbal communication during their training. My first critique is, although the article was short, it provided a great deal of information in the results section and in the conclusion. I think that more background information and drawing from more sources that were a little more current would have been more helpful to fully understand the history of nonverbal communication in gymnastics and how it has been perceived in the past. My second critique is that the authors only used a total of 6 quotes from the 6 sources that they used to support their claims or define certain aspects of the study. I think it would have been more beneficial for the authors to find additional articles that would help further explain what they were talking about and make their case stronger. I also tried to look at the sources that they used, and they are French or Romanian, and I don't speak or I cannot read in those languages, so it was no help to me personally when I was trying to see where their information came from and see if I could get a little bit more out of those sources. My third critique is my overall impression of the results for this article were good. I think that the results greatly support what we learned on the importance of nonverbal communication, as well as how much we use nonverbal communication every day and how important it is. This article also touched on the different types of nonverbal communication that we learned about in class, including eye contact, facial expressions, and body expressions, as well as movements, gestures, and postures. They conveyed different meanings and how they could possibly be perceived. And I thought it was interesting to get to read about how those different things, those different factors can be perceived in the world of gymnastics, which is a sport that I never did. Lastly, this article touched on multiple forms of nonverbal communication and their importance in the world of gymnastics from the viewpoint of the athletes themselves, which is interesting to get to see because it's coming from them, which was interesting. And it also shows how important it was, which we learned about nonverbal communication all semester and how important it is. And this article takes real people and shows why it is critical and useful and very powerful in this super focused study of gymnasts. All right, thank you.